Happy Halloween!
I'm Allie.
I'm Jay.
Welcome back to Pretty Perspectives Podcast.
Happy Wednesday. That wasn't planned, you guys.
So,
for the final episode,
it's the final
countdown. That was so good. I'm so proud of you.
Next.
You've come a long way. Today we're going to be talking about... You look silly. Today we're going to be going over 5 tips on how you can be a better friend. You got a friend in me. Go.
Okay, tip number 1.
Uno.
Listen. So it's very important to be a listener, a very good listener. Listen to understand your friend, not to respond. They want to be heard most of the time. They don't want advice most of the time. And if they ask for advice, be able to listen enough to know what they're actually dealing with.
Yeah.
What they're actually communicating to you.
Let me say something about this tip that I just thought about. I feel like a lot of times when someone's communicating with us, we want to and we strive to be relatable to them and like build a background of relatedness, that it stops being about what they're trying to share, and then it becomes how you've also dealt with that situation, how you've handled it. And while I think it comes from such a good place, a lot of times it can feel on the receiving end that you're not trying to hear them or you're not being heard, because while we go through similar situations in life, we're completely different human beings. We relate to it differently. The way that I will respond to a situation is different from even how Allie would respond to a situation. So I just think it's really important to reflect on how you listen to people, and if it occurs to them that you've listened to them, like on the receiving end of things.
I've definitely been like guilty of that, but I've been intentionally working on that.
Yeah.
Like, no, they don't want to hear about my relatability to them. They just want me to listen to what their situation is specifically to them. So I get that.
Yeah. Tip 2, ask them what they need. What you need? What you need? I got. Okay, we're doing really well today on that. But when I say listen to what they need or ask them what they need, is a lot of times we maneuver relationships based on what we need versus what is the other person like really looking for. And if you don't know, ask them.
Like, do you need space? Do you need, regarding a situation, do you need, hey, I can't talk about it right now? Or do you need even like a listening ear, no advice, or don't speak, or like, do you need to go out to relieve some stress, like stuff like that. And it could even be like,
and sometimes asking makes that difference, because it's like, oh wow, what do I need? A lot of times I think it's so easy to operate in survival mode. We're animals, you know what I mean? There's instincts, there's fight or flight, and a lot of times I think we live into that survival mode that we forget that we're intelligent human beings. Like, we have the opportunity to ask for what we need and express ourselves, and that not be an issue, especially if you're surrounding yourself with great people, which you deserve to be around.
Period. Tip number 3.
Yes.
Get vulnerable. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Key.
And be comfortable. Mm-hmm. Be uncomfortable with being vulnerable. Like, your friend is there for a reason. Like, obviously you chose them as a friend, right? So like getting to a level or a place where you can tell them and share without judgment and knowing that they won't judge you is so important. I remember when we were creating this podcast, like telling Jalen something that was like sitting there on my chest, and
I remember that.
And like the pit of my stomach, when it wasn't even anything pertaining to what we were discussing.
Nothing.
But it was just like I needed to share it so I can have it out here in the world and not have it bother me anymore. And just saying that, I promise you, it made such a difference to the point where it doesn't even trigger me anymore. Like, I've even got that distinction today.
We literally talked about that today. And I remember exactly what Allie told me. It was the day that we decided to create this podcast. And I remember it just like, it's like you could see something lift off of your spirit. Like, it was literally like weighing on you. But when we talk about vulnerability, that's where the real connection comes from. And we did an episode a while back that we'll link here around being lonely. And I was like, somehow that popped up today, like a statistic on how many people feel alone or feel like they don't have meaningful connections. But that's what it is. It's the lack of meaningful connections. And maybe you don't need new friends. Maybe you need to really nourish the friendships that you have and move them up the ladder. Move them up the ladder, because I know there are levels of friendship, and sometimes you don't always know where you stand with those people, but taking the time to develop that and to ask for what you need and see if they deliver on that and have that open line of communication is what makes the difference, but it's also what's fulfilling. That's what it is. That's fulfilling. Right. And the first time you're vulnerable with somebody, or vulnerable in general, there are going to be so many uncomfortable conversations. Right before this podcast, I had to have a super uncomfortable conversation, and it doesn't get necessarily easier, but what calms the nerves, or is like, no, I'm gonna say it anyway, is the fact that I know there's really nothing that I can say to Allie that's gonna have her be like, forget you. And we talked about that today as well. But the friendships that you have that are gonna last, that are gonna thrive, are the ones where you get to be vulnerable, whether it's good vulnerable, bad vulnerable, or uncomfortable vulnerable, that it's just out there all the same. So I think this is just such a huge, big one, and you can be the one to initiate that. I feel like that's it too. Is like, ooh, who's gonna be the first one to spill the beans?
I don't like it. Sometimes I'm like, because I know that like there's things to say, but it's also like gives you a sense of freedom, like, and you don't have to live with whatever's going in your mind for a long time. Like, get it out there. First of all, life's not happening in your head. Life's happening outside. So being free and being uncomfortable, whether you're comfortable or not, it doesn't matter, but it gives you such peace and freedom
and power.
And you can't control how people are gonna react. You can only control like what you're gonna say and how you say it.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like it's not you. You're not responsible for how people deal with things. Like, you're only responsible for how you're delivering something.
And the space that you create, I think, afterwards as well. Because even being the initiator of being vulnerable, you don't know that the other person's gonna open up to you in the same way. You don't know any of that. But I think in creating a space of vulnerability and putting it out there and putting it on the line, not only has you feel so freed up and so powerful, but the more vulnerable I am, and I've gotten more comfortable with this, the more vulnerable people are comfortable being with me. Like, it's like I attract it. Like, I attract people being just raw and honest and transparent, and I love that. But that started with me, not waiting for someone else to have those conversations and sit there and like, okay, like,
And it's always going to be a work in progress. Like, it's never going to be
like, hold my hand.
No. It's like, no. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, I thought that was just such an important one to
Okay. Next. Did we say 5?
Be open. This is so important. I know we talked about like communication a lot in this past month, and we talked about vulnerability and boundaries and things like that. But there's a difference between not even a difference. There's such a distinction between being able to be open when someone has the same idea as you and everything seems all good in the hood until your idea and the commonality of your ideas. You know what I mean? Like, you blow out a candle and that no longer exists. You guys have a serious conflict or completely separate ideas or beliefs around a situation. This is where it gets tricky, but essential to keep an open mind, because you don't have to agree.
Right. I was gonna say the same thing.
You don't have to agree, and that's okay. But knowing that your friend is still going to maintain the same level of respect for you, the same level of love for you, even though you have different ideas. Because in being open, the idea is to understand, right? When you go into a conversation, are you really going into it to understand where your friend is coming from, to really feel, to be empathetic, to be compassionate? And I think, specifically right now, we're in a time where this is so crucial, because there's a lot of controversy and a lot of things going on, right? And I think there's a lot of things to take into account when people have different ideas or perspectives around what's happening in our world. And we need to be able to talk to people about it in a safe space, because every space is not a safe space.
And it's I feel like it's becoming more common where spaces aren't safe to talk.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you go to a bar, you shouldn't talk about politics or what's the other one?
Politics and religion.
Right. So where do you get to do that? Yeah. I mean, okay, immediate family members, cool. Like,
I feel like even that,
even that can sometimes be even like worse maybe, you know, but even so being open to a different perspective, again, not agreeing, I think that's really important because people come to the table with one perspective, one view, and they're not willing to change. Yeah. So it's also being willing and open enough to, I hear your perspectives, I either get it, I agree with, oh, right, you didn't, you know, I never thought about it that way. Even being open to that.
Or saying, important. I don't, like, I can't understand that perspective and I get that that's,
but I respect yours.
But I respect yours, and be that. Because, like we said, there's a lot of places where it's not safe to talk about. But I think the benefit of us being in a time where there are so many different generations alive and commingling, like there's so much to get from older people. Like you're never, you know, too old to learn and you're never too young to teach. And I think that's such an opportunity that we have as we move and we interact with people. That's like beautiful. But it also, it all starts with how you come to the table and are you willing to receive things that maybe you don't want to hear or isn't the most pleasant to hear or differs from your perspective and your ideologies. So I think that's such a beautiful opportunity, and how you come to the table is everything, because if you start a conversation with somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong, you're never going to receive the gift of other people. You
can't develop a friendship outside of that perspective, like outside of someone has to be right or wrong, because first of all, there's no right and wrong, there's just what is. So
there's what is,
you'll always be fighting in a way, like you'll always be like
there's some kind of tension. Yeah.
Like I know really quick, like where I used to work, these two girls, completely different political views, all good, and normally where that would be like, you know, they'd be biting each other's heads off, controversy, conversations, all that stuff. They are like just great friends. Like it is what it is, and like that's your belief, that's my belief, and we can be great. Like you can coexist in the same space and have such a great thriving friendship as well. Like it doesn't matter, right? So, yeah, I love that.
Drum roll, please. The last one.
Why did I? Okay, go ahead.
I did this past one. It's your turn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Drum roll. Okay. Consistency. You ran out.
Of like.
All right. So tip number 5 is consistency. So, you know what? She said this really earlier. You should go, because you were talking about a level of consistency means different.
Yes.
Means
no, I get that.
Different
things to different people.
Yes.
So consistency is important within relationships to build that safe space. If you're only like, you can't develop a friendship off of these staggered experiences. There's a level of getting to know someone and feeling connected and feeling safe with them that happens through consistency. But the catch-22 on that is everybody has a different idea of what consistency is in different relationships. There are people who go months without talking and still have a great relationship, and there are people that talk every single day. Typically, I'm a very, I like to call it a low maintenance friend. I don't talk to a lot of my friends on a super regular basis. We can go months without talking and still get together and catch up on everything and have a great time, like we don't skip a beat. However, between me and Allie's friendship, if we were to go 2-3 a month without whatever amount of time without talking to each other, it would be odd. It would be something's wrong.
I was just about to say
that would be like, whoa, what is happening here? Mm-hmm. So also understanding what that is and what kind of friend you have. My friends that we go months, or even I've gone a year without talking to one of my friends and one of my closest friends, and there's just a mutual understanding of our busyness, of what we need to be maintained, you know, spiritually, and, you know, thrive and still have a good friendship. And there's still a level of I'm here for you even if I'm not talking to you every day or every week. If she called me at a drop of a dime, then I would be right there. So I think having that understanding within your friendships as well, I think there's an expectation sometimes of how often you should speak to people. So
I think that goes back to what we were saying last week about how, like, the friendships, like what bucket they're in, essentially. Like, you know how consistent you're gonna be with certain people. Or, you know, like, I know some of my friends, like even like you said, like you talk to them for a while, or like every day, or you don't talk to them for a while, I mean, and it just depends on what kind of friend that they are as well. So it's like making that distinction as well, like where they fit into your life.
And communicating that.
Right.
For the most part, I tell people if I'm developing a friendship, they know I'm not normally a let's talk every day kind of person, unless that's what we start to develop over time. But that way it's not like taken personal. You know what I mean? So
I also think consistency is like how you show up as a friend.
Boom, shakalaka laka. That was good.
How you show up, like continuing to show up powerfully. Like, you know, when we read our letters and Jay was saying what the kind of space that I provide for her and her for me as well. But is that consistent?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and even recognizing with myself, like, okay, in this moment, was I being powerful, or was I providing a space where she could be open and transparent and authentic? Was I having an attitude, you know, stuff like that, like recognizing within your own self, like who you're being in that moment, in that situation. If I'm not showing up consistently, you know, then I feel like that develops like some hardships in friendships too, because they're coming to you for a reason as a friend on this specific situation that they talk to nobody else about, and you're being some kind of way, you know, not likely, but like just recognizing that as well.
Yeah. I think that's important. That's so important because the space, we talk about that all the time, the space we provide, but that's consistent. And I think it's important because we own up to when we're not being that consistent version of ourselves. And I think what's so important is we're able to come together and say like, yeah, that wasn't our best. That wasn't our best go around.
And we feel it. Like, it's like,
yeah, it's kind of weird.
It can be like one word or like, it's so weird, but like we feel it. And I think that's also like, we've developed that over time. Like our friendship is deep enough for us to be aware of like, something's missing, something's going on, you know, stuff like that. And it's of ever working, you know, progress, right?
Gotta oil that engine.
And it's also letting her be the peanut butter and me be the jelly. And I'm the peanut butter. So it's about compromise.
Compromise. I like that.
But we said 5, not 6. So, thanks for listening.
Just to recap, right? Tip 1, listen. Tip 2, ask them what they need. 3, get vulnerable, be open, and be consistent.
Bonus, compromise.
Compromise? Bro, that was not your best moment.
Compromise, but it's fine. It's all good. So guys, if you have any other tips for us, leave them in the comments.
How can we be better friends?
No, how can you be a better friend?
All of us. We're all friends.
How can we all be friends?
We're all friends.
Be better friends.
Give me a high five. Ready?
Like, comment, subscribe. And what? I was ready to...
You guys, like, comment, subscribe. We will see you next Wednesday. We will be announcing a new series for next month.
Love you.
I won't do that. Bye.